So who we have here today, I'm Ashley, and I am a master's student. I did my undergrad in cybersecurity, and I'm now focused in human-computer interaction. Then we have Kelsey as one of our TAs. She is software engineering and a minor in math. Elise is another TA, and she is data science with a minor in business. And then we have Ayushi as well, who is majoring focused in data science. So we have quite a mix of people here today, as I'm sure you guys are as well with your majors. So it's awesome to have everybody. Our first half, we're just going to go a little bit into like what we're covering and kind of understanding what we're using. And then we'll actually install those tools. And then we're going to work on setting up GitHub and VS Code to work together. And then we'll take a break and we'll come back and actually practice some basics with GitHub. And then I'll show you where some other resources are. So if you want to go further on your own, you can. And then we will hang around for a little bit at the end for any questions. So what we're going to use today, we have VS Code, GitHub, and Hugo. VS Code is essentially just where you're going to edit your code. And it should work for Windows, Mac, Linux, all of those. And GitHub is going to be where we keep our code. And then Hugo is just kind of an extra thing. You don't always need Hugo, but we are using it for the Girls Who Code website. And so in case you are interested in looking at that at some point or working on the team with us, we will go ahead and use that as well. And that is just a static site generator. So it's a site where we can get a lot of templates that we can use to build websites. First, we're going to look a little bit more at VS Code. And so this is, you can kind of see a little preview of this where you can edit your folders and files that you have in a project. And those can be saved either locally or to your GitHub repos. And then you can also collaborate with others. There's a live share plugin that you can have where you can code live with somebody else. You can actually do peer programming. And you can also customize your settings and your colors and stuff to get it to look a little bit different than this. And so that's another cool thing. There's lots of plugins for that as well. And then GitHub is a Git hosting site. And Git is just software that's used to help manage, store, and merge your things in your project. So whether that's code, files, images, it can help with collaborating with other people and also versioning your own projects. And GitHub is just a Git hosting site. So it's where you keep your repositories or repos, which we'll talk about in a second. And that also helps with the collaboration aspect. Alternatives for Git hosting sites are GitLab and Bitbucket, if you're also interested in checking those out. And the guide that we'll see in a little bit has all of the information I'm going over now with links to those things. So in case you want to look more into any of these like topics that we're covering, you can definitely do that in the guide too. So repos is just short for repositories, and they're a place that holds all the files for your project. They also contain the edit history of each of those files. And so that's something where versioning comes in. You can actually see all of the different changes you've made, things you've added, things you've deleted, that kind of stuff. So the best way that I think of this is if you have your project files, these are like the contents, your source code. So if this is all our project and these are all the files, then we could have those files in a little filing cabinet, and the drawer itself is what would be the repo that holds all of the files for one project. And then GitHub is like the filing cabinet. So it holds all of your repositories. And there's a bit more to it than that as well if you guys want to like go farther into it, but this is the best way to visualize it, I feel like sometimes. So whenever we say repo, we're just talking about where we keep all of our project files. And then Hugo, we mentioned it was a static site generator, and there are a couple others listed here as well, Jekyll and Gatsby, if you're interested in checking those out. But basically we use it so that we can have a website template and not have to build from scratch. And then you only have to change the things you want to change. And this is what we're using to build our new website. And if you want to learn more about static site generators too, we'll have some resources for that. So in this workshop, this is kind of a broad overview and we have a detailed guide that we're going to look at on here. And I'm actually going to copy this link real quick and put that in the chat. So if you go there, this is essentially a repo that we have for this workshop. And it has a detailed guide with links to all the things that we go over. And so anything you see in my slides came directly from that guide. So I've added some extra pictures and things in the slides just to help, but the guide has all of this information. So if you feel like you're getting behind, or you want to look ahead, or you just want to like click on more things and check them out, you can have this pulled up as well. But how you use the time is completely up to you during this workshop. So if you want to try to follow along, install things, play with things, that's great. If you want to just watch for now and try it later, that's okay too. And if you follow along now, but you don't have enough time to look at other things, that guide is always available. So this is a public repository that you guys can go to at any point. Okay, so we're going to get started with setting things up. And if we go to this guide, there should be a section called Workshop Steps. And you can click on that, and then you'll see this setup guide. I'll give everybody a second to get there. And this is what you should see when it opens the guide. So this is what we're going to use to set up GitHub, Get, Hugo, and VS Code, installing these things. And if you don't see all of these options for quick menu navigation, you can just click on this little icon on the left, and they should all pop up. And so we're going to go ahead and go to the GitHub section and look at option 1. Something to note with GitHub is there is a section in there if you want to sign up with your student email. There's actually a lot of free cool stuff you can get through GitHub. It has a student developer pack. That's not something we're going to cover in this workshop, but feel free to use your UNCC email to sign up for GitHub. And then that way you can go back later and verify your student status and get the developer pack if you want. But for right now, we're just going to do option 1. So it's going to involve going to github.com/join, and I'll put that in here as well. And then just pick your username and then fill out your email address and pick a password. And it's going to ask you to verify that by sending you an email. Okay, I think that's everyone. So we'll go ahead and go to the next step. If you need anything, feel free to pop that in the chat though. If I move too fast, please let me know. The next thing that we're going to install is Chocolatey. And so this is just for Windows users. I know we probably have some Windows and some Mac people in here. We're going to do Windows first, just for this part, so that we can get Chocolatey installed. And what you're going to want to do is open up an administrative PowerShell window. And there's lots of ways to do that. One of the ways is you can right click on the Windows logo in the bottom left corner of your screen. And then there should be a Windows PowerShell admin option. And you can click that and then click yes to the pop-up that happens. And then once you have PowerShell open, you can copy the command. I'm not going to paste this whole thing in the chat because it could mess it up. But in the document that I did put in the chat, you guys can copy directly from those commands. These are just screenshots for reference. So you'll copy that, paste it into PowerShell, and then hit enter. And you're going to let the installation process finish. And once it's done, you can type the word Choco and hit enter. And you should get green and or white output as text. But if you see red, that's when we need to reach out to a TA. Occasionally, there might be issues installing this, but hopefully it will go smoothly. For Riley's question, we have to enter that whole command or only the first line? Yes, the whole command should work at once. Okay, when it says Chocolatey in the version, Yes. So if you typed Choco and you see this on the slide, that like Chocolatey V, whatever this number is, then it should be installed. Awesome. That's what we like to see. We get scared with the red text. But PowerShell makes it look a lot scarier than it is. Sometimes you can get a wall of red text and then the problem is just like one sentence at the bottom and you're like, oh, I just didn't include this or I didn't put that. So don't let it scare you. If it prints out a wall of red text sometimes, there could be a quick solution. It might be worse, like it might look worse than it is. So we're definitely here to help with those as well. So Chocolatey is just something we use to install other things. It's one of the easiest ways because then we can use the command choco install and install a lot of different things. So for Windows users, this is just going to be like one of the easiest ways to install stuff. It's also a fun word. I feel like other installers don't have as cool of names. I am going to peek at these slides since you guys have the instructions in that document. I'm going to go ahead and look at real quick installing Homebrew for the Mac users. Windows, ignore this right now, but Mac users, if you want to go ahead and go down to the install Hugo section and look at the beginning of that, we have the install steps for Homebrew. So you'll copy paste that command in the terminal and then that's all you need to do for now. If there's any issues with Homebrew, there is another like really long command in there that you can copy paste. And if you still have issues, please reach out. It sounds like Ayushi, have you used Homebrew? Okay, yeah, I would reach out to Ayushi because I'm not a Mac user personally, but I know we have worked through some of those problems before. That should work later on if needed, but this is installing Hugo, so we'll get to that in a minute. The main thing is just trying to get if this will work, copy pasting that into your terminal. But we'll also address that later just in case you wanted to start on that. Oh, completely red. Okay. That might be something if you want to, I don't know how long the warning is, if it's too long to copy paste into the chat. If you want to unmute and say what it says.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's saying new object systems.net web client. The term new object system.net web client is not recognized as the name of a CMDLET function, script file, or operable program.
Okay, let's see.
Was I not supposed to click enter after the first line?
After the first line?
Yeah, like after 4 semicolon.
Oh, okay, no, yeah, copy the whole command in there.
Okay.
Yeah, paste it all at once and then hit enter after the whole thing.
So just copy it from the Google Doc and then click enter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see if that works. Okay, the next thing that we're going to install while our Windows people are in administrative PowerShell, you stay in there and you will type choco install get -confirm or copy paste it from the document. And Mac people, if you haven't already launched a terminal, you should be able to do that. There's a launchpad icon in your dock and you can type terminal to search for it and then just click it to open. And if you already have it open or there's a shortcut, you can get to it any way you'd like, but this is one way to do it. And once you are in a terminal, you can type get and hit enter to see if you already have get. If you already have it, it should output like some help info about it. If you don't have it, it should prompt you to install it and it should tell you how to install it. So now we're going to install Hugo. And in your PowerShell, make sure, again, it's administrative PowerShell. For Windows users, you'll use this command, choco install Hugo -extended, and then space -confirm, and hit enter. And then for Mac people, if you have brew installed, you can just type brew install Hugo, and that should work. And you'll put that in your terminal if you have that open. And then if there are any issues, you have that long command. That's what installs Hugo. So if you've already run the long command, you already have Hugo installed. Okay. And if we have any issues where Homebrew is not working and the command isn't working, that might be something we have to address one-on-one during the break, and that is totally fine. So just hang in there. If there is an issue, make sure a TA knows. But it should be one or the other. If brew doesn't work, the long command will work. And we don't need to worry about what all this is doing. That's not something we'll cover today, so don't worry about that. And just to note again, you won't need Hugo for everything, but it is something that we're using for our website. So you'll already have it if you want to help out the web team. Can you explain what Hugo is? Yeah, so Hugo is a static site generator. And that just means that it allows us to create templates and have like partials of web pages that can be reused easily. So a lot of people create templates that everybody else can use on there. So what we get is basically their code that we can use and change just what we want. So if we like the layout of a website, we can just go in and change like the color of it, the text that's on it, or whatever. We can make it however personalized we want. And it allows us to have things like a header HTML, a footer HTML, separate from your main content on your web page. And so we can keep our code a lot cleaner as well with all the partials. So it's just kind of an easy way to do that. And it has lots of different templates that you can choose. So the last thing that we're going to install is VS Code. And for Windows people, you'll just go to this link and you will install it for your platform, like whatever you're on right now. Go ahead and install that. And then you can have all the defaults are fine except for this page. So just make sure that certain things are checked and unchecked on here. If you want to create a desktop icon though, you can feel free to do that. And then Mac people, you'll just go to the same place and download for your Mac. And then I've been told the process should be more automated than clicking through how you do it on Windows. But if you need any help with that, or you get any questions during that process, just reach out. Once you have VS Code, you can open it and click on this little 4-square piece, and that's your extensions tab. And you'll install these plugins with the bolded names. So you don't need to copy the whole line, just what's bolded. These on the side are just to tell you what those are for. So we have one that helps with Git, we have some for Hugo, some for HTML tags, some for Markdown, and you just copy the bolded part. If there's an ampersand between them, just do one at a time. Those are two different things. It's just saying that they're both for whatever this category says. Once you type them in, you should see them come up as results, and there should be an install button there. Or if you click on the name that pops up, it'll have an install button in the display that it shows. Yay. I love when installs are successful. So for the next step, we're going to go back to GitHub. So if you go to here again, this will take you right to that section. But if you're already on GitHub and you're looking at the main page, there should be a place that says workshop steps. And once you're on that, we already did the setup guide, so we're going to look at the setup section. But since we already installed Git, we're going to go ahead and go to the GitHub auth to VS Code. So in case any of these screens are what you're seeing, these are where you will be. But the link that I just put should take you right to that section. Okay, so you should see this. And if you still have VS Code open, then we'll go to the next step. If you don't, go ahead and open VS Code back up. And we'll click on the view option. Should be up at the top of your menu. You'll click view, and then there's an option for command palette. And it'll pop up this little like search bar looking thing. But if you get this pop up and you type in clone and then hit enter, there will be a clone from GitHub option. So you can either click on that or use your down arrow to make sure it's selected and then hit enter. And then it should give you a pop-up saying this extension GitHub wants to sign in using GitHub. You'll just say allow. And then you might get a few other pop-ups. So all of these are shown in the guide here. You'll probably have to click continue, and then you'll enter your login info for GitHub. And then there's an authorize GitHub button. And then you can say open. And if you get another pop-up, you can also say open. And there is a note in the guide that that little search bar that we use to say clone is called a command palette. And so if we ever say that in this workshop, then that's just what we're referring to. And you can use the view menu option to get to that. Okay. So that might be because we didn't put the link in for the repository yet because we were just trying to authorize, but it did let you authorize. Okay, yeah, then that's fine, because we'll do the repo in just a second, so don't worry about that one. And for everyone who is ready to fork, we're gonna fork the repo that we're in. So where you've been looking at this guide, you'll just go to the main page, and that's the link for the main page. So it should be the Git intro repository, which is basically where our guide is. And we'll see this fork button, and we'll click on that. And then you should have a little loading screen that says forking, and it'll show the repo that you're forking. If you're already a GitHub user and you have organizations or something that you're also a part of on GitHub, it might ask you where you want to save it. So you can choose where to do that. But if not, it should automatically save to your personal workspace. But essentially what we're doing, forking, is going to make a copy of this project in your own account. So you will have a repo named Git Intro, but it'll show your username up here instead of the GWC-UNCC. And once it's forked, we can go to that repo, make sure that it is your repo after it's forked though. So checking that your username is right here instead of Girls Who Code. And you'll do the little green button that says code, click on the dropdown. And if you have HTTPS already selected, it should automatically be there. You'll see this link right here, and you'll hit the little copy button to the right. Once you have that copied, you'll go back into VS Code, and then we'll do the clone again. So open the command palette with view, and then command palette, and type clone, and you go to clone from GitHub. And before you hit enter on clone, or after you hit enter on clone from GitHub, there should be a place to put in the link. And that's when you'll put in the link that you copied and hit enter. How do you get it to say your name? So that is forking. if you go to that repository, so at that link that was in the chat, if you go there, there should be a button that says fork. And then it'll automatically show you this little screen of it's loading. And when it's done loading, what opens up should be in your account. So it should be your own copy of the project now. Yeah, and it should say underneath it, it'll say forked from whatever place you forked it from. So if you forked it from the Girls Who Code account, it'll let you know that below it. But the big letters should be your username to tell you that that's your copy. And once you have your copy, then you can do the code button, the drop down, copy the link, and then clone from GitHub. And you'll have that link that you can put in there and hit enter. What folder should you put it in? That is up to you. So what I would recommend is just putting it on your desktop for easy access, because it will actually, when you are getting that locally, it'll be all together in its project folder. So you could put that inside of other folders if you want to. But sometimes the easiest way to access it just for now is to put it on your desktop. Can't copy paste for some reason. It's weird. Are you doing right click paste or are you doing Control V? Right click paste works. Okay. Thank you, Emily. Okay, yeah. So the point that Amani made is actually a good note. Once you're authenticated with GitHub, whenever you go to clone repos or like things that you've already forked, so it's already in your account, if it's linked to your account, when you click on it and you're trying to clone, it sometimes will give you options of the different projects that are already in your account. And once you have cloned it, you'll get a pop-up that'll say, do you want to open it? And just go ahead and open it. You don't need a new window. So I don't think we should have any windows open yet. And then once all of that has loaded and it's good, it opens and you see the files. There is this little like 2 arrows and a circle at the bottom left-hand corner. And if you click on that, you can go ahead and say okay to this pop-up. And what this is doing is just giving you permission to push and pull. So when you get this pop-up, you can hit okay. And what that's doing is just giving it permission to push and pull from your repo on GitHub. And so a way that we can think about this is like any changes that you're making locally are not saved on GitHub until we commit and push, which is something that we'll cover a little bit later. But this gives you that permission to do that. It's saying, I'm giving you permission to edit my project on GitHub. So we want to click OK to that. And then there could be a pop-up like this, and you can click yes for periodically running git fetch. And if you don't see them now, I believe this is a step that we can repeat later when we try to commit and push. We'll also get this pop-up if we haven't already given it permission, it'll ask permission. So it should still happen later on if it doesn't happen right now. And if you have reached the end of that, you can click this tutorial button at the end. And that will take us back to where we see the steps. So we've covered the setup steps now. We have everything installed and we've connected to GitHub. And we're going to come back and look at the basics. So if you want to go ahead and click that, you can. Awesome. Okay. So we have the basics section pulled up, and I will pop that in the chat one more time just in case. So that should take you right to the section you need on GitHub. And then if we've got VS Code open and we've already cloned the Get Intro project, we should see that here. And so we're gonna start with the fun part now. We got all of our setup done. So now we're gonna start messing with things. First, we're gonna try adding a file. So if you go up here and you hover over the get intro title, there will be a couple options to the right, and you want to click this one that says new file. Looks like a little paper with a plus. And we can give it a name. So I'm just going to say example.txt and hit enter. And now we have a new file. And so you can name it anything, but just give it a .txt extension for a text file, since we're just gonna give an example. And so you'll see some screenshots here as well for the first few steps. And then once you've added that text file, you can go to a file save if you want to make sure that that is saved, or Control S will do the same thing. And we can start typing some text in here. So say this is an example. And then kind of see this blink over here when we save it. It lets us know that we saved. If you can do Control S or file save, either way. And then you'll see this little U up here. And so that's just, it's for untracked. And what it means is that it's basically, we haven't done that before. So it's saying like, this is new. And we have this little one that pops up over here. So this is our source control tab. We can click over here and actually see any changes we've made. So it should show us our new file here and have that U next to it. And it'll say changes up here. And so what we want to do, the U just means that like GitHub isn't tracking these changes as well yet. So this is a totally new file. And what we want to do is we want to commit first. So in order to save things to GitHub, we first are essentially saving it locally. So we're committing. We're going to do this little plus sign next to the U. First, we stage. So we click that, and then we get this new tab area that says stage changes, and it'll show you the file. And now we have a little A. And this up here is where we'll actually put in the message of what we just did. So these usually have to stay pretty short. It'll tell you if you go past the character count. But we can just say something like created example text file. And then what we're gonna do is hit either the check mark, or you can do Control Enter. And that will make it disappear. And essentially what that means is this new change has been saved locally. And this also notes, if you guys are interested in like what U and A mean, A is that you're adding something if you want to look at these. These are more in-depth comments. And so basically what we just did is we committed. So we've saved it locally, and that's all this is telling you to do. If you run into any issues, it also talks about how to solve those here, if you have any connecting issues as well. And so like I said, this guide is a little bit more in depth, and we're just kind of going through the steps and talking briefly about it. But if you are interested in reading through, this has a little bit more information than we'll go into today. But once we commit, we should see this little one at the bottom here with an up arrow. And once you've reached that point, if you could type done in the chat, just so I make sure we were all able to commit. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna look at this little one down here. And what this means is we've saved our changes, but they're only local. And we wanna make sure we save them up to GitHub. So if we click on this, we'll actually see like this little kind of clock thing, and then it's gone. Now it says zeros down here. And that means that actually successfully pushed to GitHub. Another way that you can do that is if you launch your command palette and you type in push, there is an option for git push as well. And if anybody wants a shortcut for opening that command palette, it's Control-Shift-P, and then that opens up for you. And once you have that like successfully working your VS Code in GitHub, you shouldn't have to do that again on this project or any project in the future to authenticate again like that. So the hard part should be out of the way. You'll see like a little clock pop up over here, just letting you know it's pushing it. It doesn't have like a success message or anything though. So the only way that you'll really know is if there's no longer a 1 down here, like saying that it needs to push again. So how this 1 looks over here with the arrow means that we have 1 commit that needs to be pushed. And once you push it, that should be gone. So if we want to check that this actually worked, we can go just to show you that it does save to GitHub. Let me go into mine. I think I saved it in here. You should be able to go to your own GitHub and see your get intro project. So it'll say like your username / get intro. And then it'll also show like where you forked it from. But as long as it says your username up here, this is yours. And so you should be able to see, okay, I forked it again, so this is a different project, but you should have like a little clock that shows you how many commits you've pushed that you can click on. And you can actually see, these are your commit messages. So like when we typed in, created an example text file, that's what it would say up here. And if you click on it, it'll actually show you anything you added or deleted. So this is a cool way to see any changes that you've made to any files, because it'll list all of those with each of them. And then you'll have all of your history here. And they have special names that you can use to revert back to a version. So if you wanted to undo things later, you can do that as well. Is everyone able to see that on their project on GitHub? If they go in, they can see their change that they pushed. So if you go to GitHub, it should be, this will be github.com/your username. So whatever your username is, /get intro. So I'll put mine in here. If you want to copy paste, just replace my username with yours. And then that should take you right to it. Another option is if you're on GitHub and you have your little profile picture here, there's a drop down arrow to the right. You can click on it and you'll see your repositories. And if you click on that, it should be listed up top. I have a lot going on right now, so it's listed more towards the bottom for me because I haven't recently done anything with it. But it'll be right there. And it'll just say get intro. And whenever you click on it, you can confirm that it's yours based on your username /get intro at the top. Yours probably won't say all of this stuff right here, so don't worry about any of that. This was because I tested with this project before, so it's not going to look exactly the same as yours right now. But you should see a little clock that's got a number next to it that you can click on. And basically, if that was successful, that means that you are good for committing and pushing. And you can play around with this all you want. So if you open up these folders and you open these files, this is just something called Markdown. That's all these files are, and they're basically a pretty human readable language. Instead of using a bunch of HTML, you can kind of tell what these things are doing. But if not, I believe there's a link in the guide as well to learn a little bit about Markdown. But you can practice like changing these things. So for example, the stuff in the brackets is kind of like the, this is what you'll click on. So if we say we want initial setup to be words that click and lead to this section called initial setup, that's all this is doing. But you can even change like regular text in here, delete, add things, and then you'll see changes pop up over here, and you'll just do the same thing again. So you'll say whatever changes you made, and then you'll commit those and push them. So it'll be, once you do it a few times, you'll get in the groove of it. So we'll actually try it one more time here. So we'll just say like, I'm going to delete this and say testing. Okay. And since this isn't a new file, we're just modifying the file. That's why we have the M here instead of the U, whereas when we added a new file completely, we got the U. So that's what this M is for. And we'll just go ahead and stage that again. And if you had a ton of changes, by the way, and you didn't want to stage them individually, you would hover over changes and just hit this plus sign. It will stage all of the changes that are listed below it. So if you made a bunch of changes, that might be worth doing just to do it here. But you can also do it just one by one, how we just did. And then we'll just say, leave it alone. Add text. And usually you want to be a little bit more specific if it was something important, but this is just an example. So with that, I'm just going to click the plus. So now we committed, everything is gone. We go down here and we see the 1. We click on it and it push. You see the little clock pop up. And then we know our changes are saved in GitHub now. So that's just something you'll get in the groove of doing. And it's easier once you get shortcuts and that kind of stuff. But basically any changes you make, you want to make sure you're saving them both locally and to GitHub. Because if we just save locally and we never update GitHub, then if something happens to our project, GitHub won't have our latest version. So you just always want to make sure you both commit and push. And those are steps that you can keep using this guide to go back and practice. And there's some keyboard shortcuts in here as well. And so if we're in workshop steps, we just ran through the basics. We're not gonna have time to do branching and other things in this workshop, but if you wanna try them, you click on this next level section and there's different things that you can do. So you can view your file changes and stuff inside of VS Code itself. There's also adding multiple changes, undoing, branching, pull requests, and merging. And so these are going to be more things that you'll use when you collaborate with people on GitHub. So we can talk a little bit about branching, but we won't do it today. Branching is something, so if you want to experiment with some code, or say like I have a live website running and I want to mess with some stuff, but I don't want it to go straight to the live version. So if I'm running it on GitHub, like GitHub is hosting my website, then I would want to have another branch called like development or something. And that just makes kind of like another copy of the project that you can use and play around with. And it doesn't have to affect your main branch. Because your main branch, if you had a website live, that's what you would use, like it would be using that code. So if I had a development branch, I could do whatever I want to that branch and edit the code and it won't affect anything. Then when I do want it to affect something, so say like my development's done and I want it to reflect those changes in the main branch, then we do something called merging. And if it's just your stuff, you can merge it yourself. But if you're working with a team, usually you would do what's called a pull request, and they would review and make sure that that will work out, or that they want to add your code to that. So there's information about each of those things here. And that's something that we'll also cover in later workshops. This one's just kind of covering the intro. But if you do want to go ahead and try this stuff by yourself, that feel free to, and you can reach out if you reach any errors or have any questions going through this. But essentially, that's what branching is for. So say I'm fixing a bug or just playing around with the website or something, I would do it on a branch. And then I would create a pull request that allows people to look through what I did. And then they can compare it to the current code as well. So there's lots of cool things you can do to collaborate on here. Our main focus today is just making sure like you have VS Code now, you have some files to practice with, you can commit and push. You have your own repo now on your own GitHub account. And so this was a lot of hard setup work, but this will make it to where you can just jump into other projects a lot easier. So this was the hard stuff first. And that's why we're only covering a little bit of it. But branching, pull requests, other things will be things that the web team will do together too. So if you guys are interested in that, that's definitely something you can check out. Just keep a lookout for when we have our first team meeting. And so if we don't have any questions, I just want to tell you guys before you go, if you haven't signed up with us on Niner Engage, that is how you will be able to join our Discord, be on our member list, get our newsletters. And that's when we also talk about like what events we have coming up. So you can check out any of those. I'll put the link right in the chat. Okay, so that link has all of our stuff on it. It's got our website. There's a button to become a member, and that'll take you right to our Niner Engage page. And that's where we'll have our event announcements. You can sign up to be a member, stuff like that. So we will have more workshops coming, and this was just the introduction to get everybody set up. And now that you have VS Code and this other stuff, it'll be a lot easier to do other projects. So I appreciate you guys sticking with it. I know that that was a good bit of troubleshooting today, and you guys did it and got over that hump. So that's the hard part. So thank you all for coming so much, especially on a Saturday. Go enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you guys later.